The trick-or-treat version.
Trick-or-treat version. The post-Halloween version of The Last Word presented by Chrisman Commentary. And here we are, 3 screens, 1 face, 2 avatars. My co-hosts today are each crating their animals. Jody is crating her puppies, and KP has crated his puppies, his kids, his monkeys.
My 4 monkeys, my four little kids they're having a sugar hangover from Halloween here in the house.
Crazy. Well, KP, it's Friday. It's the post NBA Friday, and here's Jody back after getting the puppies all crated. So all 3 of us were in Denver for NBA, and just thought we'd open there and get a quick 2-3 minute kind of what was the theme, what was the prevailing takeaways that you guys took from the week.
And I'll let Jody go first, but I love when we get listeners from kind of outside of our circle and like a broader audience. And so, people that are interested in hearing more about the housing industry and what goes on in lending and everything. The Mortgage Banker Association is the premier trade group that lobbies on behalf of literally all Americans for better housing policy and lending policy. And they have an annual show that rotates cities once a year. This year it was in Denver. It's basically the Super Bowl of all of lending and policy and regulation and compliance when it comes to conferences. And it's like the last conference of the season. And go, Jody.
I guess I have to take myself off of mute. No, I think that the overall sentiment, because, the last 2023 and the beginning of this year, every conference that I attended, there seemed to be like this look of fear and panic in people's eyes. And I think the overall sentiment from people that I have heard from and what I felt when I was there is some cautious optimism, and probably was the most optimistic conference I've been to in over a year. So I do feel like, people are hanging in there, but it still is a wait and see game. But it was nice to feel that energy and to have a little bit different of a feel of being at a conference. And it's a good thing it's the last conference of the year, because if no one has attended, it is crazy. And it is like spread out over the city. So you walk at least 3 to 6 miles a day from meeting to meeting. You're trying to catch sessions that are important to help you grow and try to catch up with everyone before we all go into hibernation over the winter and then kick off the conference scene again in January. But overall, I think it was, I would say the sentiment was extremely optimistic. I also will say, we talked about this, I think last week, or maybe it was the week before, about the conversations around AI and the amount of comments and misinformation that is spewed around artificial intelligence is just insane. So those are my 2 thoughts.
You know what? Before I go in, will you just kind of give 2 more thoughts on that? Because that's my biggest theme coming out of there. And I respect your thoughts on tech so much.
Yeah.
Talk about that piece.
So you see things, and I guess you can have like there's varying degrees of artificial intelligence, right? And if you think of workflow automation that we've had for years, that is rules-based, not artificial intelligence, not machine learning, is now saying, hey, we were the first to have artificial intelligence. And it's like, well, did you change your platform? Because you didn't have it. Like, that's just like a rules-based workflow. Like, that isn't artificial intelligence. I also thought it was interesting. There was so OCR, I feel like, is like, that's one thing I think that the industry has like been there, done that, seen that. There's OCR, and I heard a company saying, that they have artificial intelligence now because they've had OCR for like 5 years. And it's like, congratulations, let's figure out like, what's the next thing? So they were just kind of like bragging on themselves because they had OCR. And I found it extremely interesting.
KB,
I
anything
will.
there?
Oh yeah, I will just say, on the AI point, it's so funny. I remember like 2 Februarys ago, almost 2 years ago now, is when the world pretty much really discovered Chat GPT. Although it's been in the lab for a long time, and there are a lot of us that have been following AI for years. I mean, we've got companies in our business that are true AI partners. And I remember, like, the very next week was ICE Experience, and I'm not going to name names, but to your point, Jody, like some of us will know this one. It was like we were all at ICE Experience, and it said, now it was actually a really brilliant marketing thing, and it was like, business at the speed of AI or something like that. It was just kind of a play on word, which is smart and brilliant. You're tapping into that AI thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I was like, I channel my inner, Ron Burgundy. I was like, I don't believe you. Like I know your source code didn't change overnight. It's literally DOS based and it's super old, and it is great and it's super effective. But I was like, man, some of the ads that, and slogans that were coming out, I was just like, no way. Like, but dude, if you just say AI, like, you're gonna draw on the attention, and I get it. I'll just end this on AI. It's the most overhyped, overused thing. But at the end of the day, what the actual results will be is probably the most understated. I mean, Meta just spent $40 billion this year alone training AI clusters to create the metaverse, like a completely different world. Now, we may not, like, you may say, oh, that's not, I'm not playing video games on my virtual reality set. I don't think people get truly where AI is going to go. I mean, if you see Minority Report, you see him wearing the glasses and he's walking around, there's like all this other world and stuff. And that's literally what they're building. One of the training clusters, not to get too geeky, I'll get back to MBA, but not to get too geeky, but one of the training clusters for the data sets that they are modeling out for within Meta, they have the old H100 chipset from NVIDIA, which is, 2 times more powerful than the first chipset from 22. There's over 1,000 of this chipset in just one cluster that they're training. And the Blackwell chipset, which is supposedly like 4 times more powerful, is coming out later this year. So I'm just telling you, like, there is so much that's coming for AI. How it's going to impact our business. It was a big topic at MBA. It was a lot. It was talked about a lot. Jody, I think you nailed it. I don't think we're quite where we think it's going to go, yet, but there's a lot of like AI assistant type stuff, especially for sales, call, voice automation, task routing, things like that are coming through. Other than that, I mean, it's business as usual for, it's funny. I get these texts, or I'll see someone very briefly. I saw Jody. I saw you briefly once on the 3rd floor of the Embassy Suites, where all those meeting rooms were, and anyone that, so yeah, I know you're a recovering lender, but you consult on behalf of lenders and you help structure lenders, and so you were in the spot where lenders need to be. And I'm always shocked. I saw Bill Griffin from Griffin Funding, and I just told him, kudos to you, because I don't see many of your peers here. You're up and coming independent mortgage bankers trying to grow, and he was there. I saw him in the lobby of, I think it was the Hyatt. He's doing the work. He's doing what you and I were doing, Jody, what you and me and Brian have done for years, which is meet with the warehouse lenders, meet with the investors, talk about new products, talk about new tech, talk about development teams. What are you seeing? What's emerging? Meet your LOS. It's a lot, and you just don't really get a chance to see everybody out there as much in a social setting, because there's a lot of business that gets done at this conference.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And to your comment about the marketing around AI, this is what I love the most about all of it. It's like, well, if you're a lender and you're like, well, what are regulators going to do about AI? Oh, our product isn't actually AI.
Yeah.
So they play like both sides of the coin as to where it's going to go. And we talked a lot about that. I did a session with Sophia Rosado at FlowFi and Matt Birdseye at Bay Equity. And we were talking about change management and just like where everybody's head is at. And I think there are a lot of people that are just sticking their head in the sand to AI and wait and see what happens and where all of the chips fall, whether it comes to regulation or whatever's going to be the best product that is out there, because it's a very overwhelming consuming space to try when you're trying to run a mortgage operations and work in your business. It's hard to work on your business and to weed through all of the noise.
Last thing I'll add on the MBA until next year, or till January when we get ready to go to IMB.
Yes, IMB, Austin.
From my seat, and this is probably more to do just with my role, but most of the conversations that I was having at the MBA were forward thinking in terms of business development, how to arm our loan officers, with new tools, how to help them find new opportunities. And that was a shift, I think, in my mind from the last couple of years when it was all about optimizing and back end operations, cost containment, cost cutting, and all those things. So I did leave encouraged that the folks that I was talking to anyway are leaning into finding ways to help their salespeople, grow and be more effective in their business.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to put a little bow on this one. I just weighed myself. I weigh the same today as I did before I left last Sunday. So I thought I would gain a lot of weight. I actually went for a run on Wednesday and I did a workout and then of course starved myself basically. So I'm back down to 180. Just want to let you know,
Nice.
It's possible. It's possible at the trade show not to put on pounds.
Well, do you have time to eat? I mean, or is that just like liquid calories that you're counting? Yeah. Because it's like you have to like make time to eat.
Right.
I
was skipping meals. Not that I missed any. So
I was off to a bad start. So I had an event at the Broncos game with Penny Mac, which is one of our premier partners that we sell to, and so you're eating like a hot dog and pizza and beer, and then I go and I have a Resbog dinner. And so I sit down and it's a buffet and I eat a little bit there. And then I run real quick over to Zactus and, I'm sitting there talking to, Greg Holmes and Perry Steiner and the team and Shelly and everyone. And, I'm picking at, whatever food they have there. And then I go to my actual, dinner with, Dave Savage and Rich over at Trust Engine and have like a pork chop, So I literally have 3 dinners and a Broncos, smorgasbord. And I'm like, this is not going to end well when I go home at the end of this conference. And then I end up just basically, what do millennials call skipping breakfast now? It's like a new name. They call it intermittent fasting. Yeah, intermittent fasting. And don't we just call it skipping breakfast? I don't know. I'm old enough to just call it skipping breakfast. So I try to do some salads at lunch and it all helped out. So here we are.
All right, we're gonna swing from the food portion of the conversation back into
conference tips, health tips.
So here we are, November 1st, right? And we know what's coming up next Tuesday. But first, we had some economic news this week. I think that's having some impact. It looks like today, KP. I know this is something you keep an eye on closely. Why don't you kind of kick us off with the news of the day with the jobs report and kind of the impact on rates and all things mortgage.
So this was also the Super Bowl week of macroeconomic news and for earnings reports. So I mean, this week could not have been more jam-packed full of just information that could tilt rates one way or the other. So the big one obviously is jobs report. there were only 12,000 jobs created, last month in the month of September. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics puts that out the first Friday of every month, which is today. 44,000 jobs were taken out because of the machinist strike for Boeing. Obviously, Hurricane Milton and Hurricane Helene had a lot of impact on jobs. So some of that stuff will filter back into next months or the months after, whenever, strike gets, fully resolved and stuff like that. But 12,000 jobs is not a great headline number. But I think the more important number in the underlying data, the internals that some people like to call it, is wage growth was still 0.4%. And so that is always kind of feared at the Fed as something that puts upward pressure on prices. That if people that are still working and gainfully employed are continuing to have wage increases that are higher than actual inflation, which we saw the core PCE, the personal consumption expenditure, that came out this month. I believe that was 0.2 or 0.3 month over month, depending on which read you do. And so, if wages are growing higher than prices, then prices tend to get pushed up later because of the higher wages. But what's interesting is that our workforce obviously is very strong, very robust, very productive, which is why the wages are going up. There aren't a lot of new hires because you can see the job opening data come down significantly. Okay, so there's less openings. There's not a lot of firings. Okay, there's not a lot of new jobless claims. Yesterday, jobless claims was pretty low. So you have this economy that if you want to say that the job market is robust, but it's weakening in the fact that there's less new jobs. And Q4 is very interesting because once all the seasonal trends kind of flush out from all the shopping and the spending and all the making and the doing and the manufacturing for all the stuff that we buy between now and the end of the year, you actually start to see actual layoffs. So things just get weak in the winter. The harvest is over. We've reaped for the year. The moon is moving into Scorpio. We are settling into the winter. And so this is when many industries start to actually lay people off going into the dead of the winter, going into the end of December, January, and February. So we'll keep an eye on that. Obviously, we have a humongous election next week. We can maybe save that one for a couple minutes from now. But rates, I don't. Every time I say something about the 10-year Treasury, I get proven wrong very quickly. But it seems like they've hit like the ceiling at 432, 430, maybe 440.
I just looked, and it is at 4.341. So
okay.
It is up today.
So it's important where it opens and where it closes, right? Mm-hmm. So the opening, the bond, when all the news kind of hits at 8:30 Eastern time, like for example, jobs report today, you see the initial reaction. What do the bond traders think about that data? Then they start to read the report, and then you start to see things maybe relax or keep going higher, depending on something they don't like. So I think what's important is where it closes today. And having said that, there's a lot of uncertainty in the markets. Did the Fed get it right? Are they only going to do 25 basis points next week? We have a Fed meeting next week. What are they going to tell us about the meeting after? They don't have a dot plot at this one. So the last dot plot we saw, they're cutting 25 next week and 25 again in December. And are they going to stick to that? There's a lot of talk, like there always is, the parlor games we play. Well, they may have to hold off. They may only do one cut this year, and then there'll be less next year. But then, of course, everyone's saying that now because, well, before today, the jobs reports were strong, but now they're not. So people back to saying there's two cuts, this year for sure, and another 100 basis points next year. So, being data dependent gets us all kind of on this roller coaster. But the trend has not been broken that rates are still coming down. And I say that with the 10-year Treasury going up about, 60 to 70 basis points. But if you look at a more longer term track, you see like these peaks, but there are lower highs. If you go back and you mark it, it's kind of a technical thing. So the trend is still down. We have not broken that. So I'll shut up and let you guys ask questions.
I think that there just overall is this wait and see. And I hope that on the other side of the election that we can stop waiting and seeing and there'll be more clarity of the direction of the market. It's almost
Because
like,
you think it'll be settled on Tuesday. You think next Tuesday at the end of the night it'll be a clear-cut winner.
no, I don't think, no.
I didn't hear that.
I know. That was a softball.
I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters which way the election goes. I think it's just that we have reached a point of the answer, and now everybody can move on with their lives. And we'll come up with other stuff that we can, say that, the Fed is waiting on to see, and we can, like you said, have the parlor talk about it because we need something to talk about and we need something to watch and we need something to doom and gloom on. But I do think that there is just like the end point. And so, regardless of what the outcome is, that people start moving forward. And then until we have the next thing that we wait to see and sit on the sidelines, and
that'll be rates. Watching the waiting on what the Fed's decision. Yeah, I agree. I think yes, we will not have an answer, Tuesday night, but at least the madness will be behind us in terms of just the distractions that are every day in front of us on the news, on the radio, and online. And I think for most of us, there'll be this kind of sigh of relief, and we'll move on to the next thing because that's what we do. But this one's kind of a big thing that we need to get behind us, right?
Yeah.
And I do think the House and the Senate are super important for gridlock, which is good for business.
Yeah.
The stock market, Bitcoin market, bond market, mortgage-backed security, everything's moving based on, where they think debt and deficit spending will be going next year. And look at gold prices, all-time highs. There's a lot going on, and again, there's still uncertainty, so no one really knows, who's going to win the White House, which party will control House and and Senate, and I think the market will be a little volatile until we figure that out. But you know what? Certainty comes when the data comes, right? This week, I touched on Q1 earnings. It may not be as relevant as people think, but when Apple and Meta and Amazon and Google and all these companies, when they go out and they say, hey, this is what or Microsoft, this is what we earned, this is what we think about AI, this is how much we spent on it, this is how much money we made, and this is what we think about the future. And so what's interesting is just the Magnificent Seven is like a third of the entire market's cap weight, and so they started to sell off yesterday. And if they sell off, money moves into bonds. So say stocks and bonds, right? So if people say, hey, this market's a little expensive for all the big mega cap stocks and the stock market in general, we just saw a weak jobs report, 2.8% GDP last quarter, a little under what we thought, 3% the quarter before. But there's a PCE read, by the way, in the GDP report for just the quarter. It was 2.1% for just last quarter, right? So inflation is low. And so if you start to see money move out of stocks because you think it's a little expensive, it goes into bonds, and that brings rates down. And again, a lot of that comes with the certainty of what's going on in our markets in the election. And so there's a lot of mechanics that goes on with the flow of money. I don't claim to know it all, but man, I've been researching my ass off to see how all this shit works. It's very complicated.
Yeah, and KP, we all appreciate the level of effort that you put in because your weekly videos. I think I'm not sure what the count is, like how many people are viewing those. But it's got to be off the charts. Couple things here.
It's not.
It has to be.
Let me just say this. I'm not on LinkedIn to have as many followers as possible. All of my followers have connected with me, and I've looked at them and I said, this is someone in our industry. This is someone that we can create this, collaborative environment to. Like I've never tried to boost my follower count. My group on LinkedIn is a very tight niche, right? And I would say, over half of them I put eyeballs on and met. And so
yeah.
I've never been about the likes or the engagement or all the metrics. And so I think, my group is our group. people that would listen to this show right here.
Yeah. No, I love it. And I need to shout out some of our loyal watchers and listeners. Of course, the great Paul Lucido is out there. Alan Berkowitz. Alan's been on, I think, every episode. He's been out there commenting. Alan, great to see you out there. Joey Deline, got to see Joey in Denver.
I gave Joe a high five. You were standing next to him.
I think he slapped me on the face on the way there.
That was your butt.
Christy Suk, our co-host, says howdy. And let's see, we've got Tony Valencia. Hey there, Tony. There's Paul again. And now Jake Vermillion. So I think this is a good closing segue. Jake, I want to show this quote, but then, there's Jagdis Bajrir as well. Hey, Jag. So Jake says, but won't the industry still need to educate borrowers through the pros of not waiting for down payment assistance, deregulation, rate cuts, the election, school to start, whatever those things are? Jake, great point. It has never, in my opinion, I think Jody, you and KP share this, never been more critical and important for our local loan officers to kind of step up and be that trusted resource in your communities for financial education, financial preparation, especially as it relates to home ownership. And this is the time when there's kind of uncertainty and turmoil that you can stand out, be there for your community, build trust, and it will pay off. It will come back in ways that you have no idea today how that will pay off. I'd love to get your feedback, Jody, on kind of that concept of the local originator being that trusted source of sanity and education.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because we have so much headwinds for home ownership, whether it be, rising home prices. We have national news outlets that every time the Fed cuts rates, they're like, oh, then mortgage rates are going to fall, but then mortgage rates go up, and being able to help home buyers navigate through that and not feel like it is part of the not they aren't buying in. You hear it on NBC, well, it has to be true. So I definitely think, and then you have, with the increase, especially in different areas, we talked about this last week, of homeowners insurance because of natural disaster. It's like all of these things, they're just compounding. And, then there are so many resources out there and you don't know what's right. Like, should I be trying to bring down my student loan debt so that I could qualify? Should I be looking at getting my rent payments on my credit report? There is there are vast resources, but some people don't know about. And if they do know about them, it gets very confusing. So it's paramount that, there you go, KP. It is paramount that that loan officers are meeting with their clients and being the trusted advisor and helping educate them in a very hectic and crazy process that we call mortgage loan origination.
Yeah, we're built by originators. For originators at PRMG, and we still believe the local originator is the best option for a consumer. You've got the local knowledge plus the experience. And when I sit in these meetings with the head of FHFA or CFPB or HUD or Ginny or whoever, I always say, we need to support the originator base because they teach financial literacy at scale. They are the front line. We can try and automate as much of that as possible, but at the end of the day, having a nuanced conversation like we're having right now is where consumers are learning about housing. And to your point, Brian, to your direct question, I would just say, as soon as you are ready, as soon as you're financially fit, as you would say, with FinLocker, I would say buy the house, because if you are already paying a landlord and making them rich, you might as well start to build equity and get in that door, own that home, put that roof over your head. And so over time, housing is an incredible investment. And anyway, I just yes, there's no time like now. You can always refinance later.
Love that. That's a great way to put a bow on the week, except for one thing. I've got like 2 screens going over here. I got DMs coming in and texts coming in, and inquiring minds want to know, Jody, they want to know about your MBA backpack.
I have a lot to say about that. Yeah. So John Hill was calling me Dora the Explorer because it's very easy to, I have this nice pink Coach backpack. I have matching sneakers so I can get around quickly. My hands are free to, as I'm walking, I can text and do high fives to John Hill and everybody that I meet. So,
he's one to talk. He's got a backpack loaded with logs of like little cans of Zyn and, and little dip packets. And,
the aerosol, what was it, the oxygen? But it's because it is square. I think that I was being called Dora the Explorer. So thanks, John Hill. I'm still waiting on my bottle of Angels Envy.
Yeah, you might be waiting.
Buckeyes.
Jody, KP, peace out on October. Peace out on NBA. Welcome to November. Everybody, thanks for joining our last word here, and we'll see you next Friday.
Cheers.
Awesome.